I
first got to know representatives from the oil company Chevron during the Perestroika period. That's when the question of Chevron's contract at the Tengiz field was being discussed. And by the way, at that time, there was a proposal to locate Chevron's corporate village and office here in the city so that it would be one of the prettiest areas of the city. But then they proudly said, oil people should live close to the rigs. So they lived near the rigs. But after several years, since oil production is very dirty, especially with all the emissions and so on, Tengiz Chevron Oil's office just picked up and was the first to flee Tengiz. They built themselves an office building, and then they saw that they could build their company village near the bridge. That was at the end of the 1990s. Later, all the people living within a 50-kilometer radius of the village were relocated. That includes Karatan, Sargamiz, and other small villages. They all live here away from the rigs because it's dangerous there, and there's nothing to breathe there. So I'm talking about the environment that has been created at the Tengiz field. Between 1993 and 2011, they extracted 230 million tons of oil. But that's not much to them, and not only to them, of course. And TCO? TCO says that they feed Kazakhstan. Yeah, they hand over something, but it's only crumbs. There are about 3 billion tons of oil at Tengiz. At all the fields, the maximum that can be extracted is about 1/3. As a result of the new expansion of the project at Tengiz, by the end of the contract, about 1 billion tons will be extracted. And the other 2 billion? Aren't those pretty numbers? They're impossible to extract because of technical limitations and geological conditions. So I think this project is pretty simple, and there's a word for it: robbed. We're being robbed. At the end of the contract, all the recoverable reserves will be extracted. There's a threat right now of breaking development rules for the field. They could be disrupted or broken at any time. Plus, everyone forgets about the terrible accidents that took place on the Tengiz field during the Soviet period. One rig burned for 398 days in a row. Various figures state that between 2 and 3 million tons of oil burned from one rig, and plus there were all the associated problems. So where's the guarantee this won't happen again? There aren't any guarantees. No one can give us that assurance. I'm not even talking about the hundreds of other accidents that take place on a daily and monthly basis. But nobody pays attention to these issues. The most important thing now is to increase the amount of oil that's extracted. I'm not against this. It's fine for the economy to get both oil and money. But let's not forget about the environmental and social risks. In this area, there's a lot of talk but not much action. At the public hearings, I reminded TCO that the company has a contract to extract oil from Tengiz, but they don't have a contract to exploit the health of the environment and the population. You know, the emission stacks on the field are very tall. And why? So that the emissions fly as far away as possible, and nobody avoids the emissions. The surrounding areas are also affected. For instance, tomorrow the emissions will be in Turkmenistan, then Uzbekistan, and then Russia. Moreover, Chevron always avoids this question: is there any impact on the Caspian Sea from the emissions? They always say, there's no impact. But that's not true. Regardless of how many of Chevron's projects actually see the light of day, the company is compensated in oil. This is stipulated in their contract. So in fact, TCO doesn't lose a single kopeck, not 1 cent. This is because of Kazakhstan's oil. Well, in this context, one could say they get a lot for their money. Of course, there are social projects, but what do these include? They bought a desk, they brought in a gas pipeline, and they built a school on the edge of a village that you can't get to on foot. It's a typical position of a capitalist. He doesn't just work for oil. He gives jobs to his contractors, and he leads them around the world for decades. So, do they have a favorite or pet Kazakh company? No. I really don't see a future for the city's residents. In fact, we asked this question: where are you going to relocate us if something happens? They started to interrupt each other and argue. But there's nowhere in Kazakhstan to relocate to. What? Would you go to Atyrau or near Karachaganak? And where else is there to go? In the Altai region, there are also factories and mines continue to operate there. Of course, it's all necessary for the economy, I don't argue about that. But we have no more environmentally clean areas left. I joked with one of the Italians about the Kashagan field. You're probably going to take us with you to Italy, right? He laughed for a long time. And then they quietly said, yes, we will relocate you. So in the end, I think the most interesting and painful things are still to come.